you're a lunatic, and you're a loud lunatic. And the louder you are, and the more of a lunatic you are, the more that's what the left looks like. I told Destiny this when I was talking to him. It's funny because you brought it up. It was that same weekend that he was in New York, where he's talking to all the DNC people, and then the fucking scandal drops like fucking 2 days later. So I'm like, oh, that's.
By the way, apparently he's out there today talking all about this. As an attorney, that's bad, right? He should probably keep his fucking mouth shut.
Maybe it depends. Now there's a complaint against him.
Yes.
So like, there's actually the case has been brought, right? So now that the case is, you can do a bit more PR when the case has been brought. Before the case comes out, it's like you're trying to negotiate a settlement. So if you're like talking shit publicly, how are you gonna? You're not going to negotiate a guy that's now. I mean, I assume he's following his lawyer's advice, who would know better. So it's not necessarily the worst, but it depends. In any event, that was my fucking welcome to the internet moment, because I'm like, oh, I'm going to talk to Destiny. This is going to get like fucking 50,000 views, and people are going to see my little ass X account, and it's like, yeah, they're going to see it, and they're just going to be, it's all going to be, why do you support revenge porn? So that was fun.
Hey, that's great, yeah.
What I was telling him is the reason I started watching his content ever, right, was because he was talking politics, and he was talking about all this, pretty left-leaning stuff, and I see the fucking gun up on the wall. And it's like, oh, that's actually, to me, that's an indicia of a human being with a thought in their head. Mm-hmm. Because you hold a position that is inconvenient for your side, right? And if you were just orchestrating the perfect, this is why I cannot stand Gavin Newsom, because I feel like he's just saying the things that play to the California crowd. He's not a real person, right? I find that to be how I know people are credible. I'm like, okay, you have a point of view. Like even in this conversation, you've admitted several times that there's something that Trump did that he shouldn't have made that statement. That's a bad thing to do. You probably shouldn't hold the shit over Adam's head. That might be that's an error. That's a sign of credibility to me, because if you're just trying to like play up to the base, why admit anything? You know what I mean?
I agree with some caveats. Destiny's not a Democrat. He's not a traditional Democrat. Destiny is an institutionalist, right? And as an institutionalist, he's not going to give a shit, and institutionalists won't give a shit about some of these periphery things. So like abortion, they don't really give a shit. Like gun ownership, they don't really give a shit, right? He'll push back against the radical left on that stuff, but he will defend the institutions at every instant. Everyone. Find one they want. For example, when January 6th happens, he goes on his live stream and he's like, listen, the people that are trying to say that this was some pre-planned coup or some insurrection, that's bullshit. Clearly it's a riot that got out of hand. I mean, they overwhelmed law enforcement. They're in there just milling about. If they really wanted to harm Congress people, they would have done it. Now he's turned into, that is a clear insurrection. Well, what's changed? Well, I've seen the court cases. Well, that doesn't change the video that you've seen. That doesn't change the argument you've seen. What changed is now it's politically expedient, right? And he does this with all sorts of issues. For example, he gave his honest opinion 3 days into the Black Lives Matter riots, the George Floyd riots. I talked to him, and I was like, these riots are getting out of control. What should we do? We're having this conversation. He says to me, defending these riots, he says, rioting is the other side of the coin to voting. And that, yes, he's against private property destruction, but if you feel that the government institutions are screwing you over, then yes, this is how to get your voice heard. I said, well, when's it too much? Well, we're approaching it, but not quite there yet, I guess. Now weigh that against his rhetoric on January 6th, right? Where there were no private properties destroyed, right? And it's Luigi Mangione, he has the correct take. It's like, dude, you can't be fucking assassinating. But Donald Trump, when his buddy Pisco asked him, did you want that bullet to kill Trump? Destiny's response is, I can't say what I want. I don't think I could say because of terms of service, which should be a big red flag to you right out of the gate. And then he says, what I will say is him missing is the worst thing that could have happened. Now,
yeah, and that one really bothered me. And I want to be like clear about some distinctions in the way this plays out. Like for example, like he was on Piers Morgan and got challenged on that view, and I think he said something like, I'm not going to get into the nuances of that with this crowd.
That's my argument, which I support that argument. I agree.
I totally get that, I actually I get it when Ben Shapiro said the same thing when he said like I would call anyone by their preferred pronoun at a dinner party, but I'm not going to do it on a debate stage because it seeds too much linguistic.
That's my argument with this tweet. Fuck you. I'm not telling you that. I supported Destiny saying that, is, by the way.
Well, I totally understand that. Like, Piers Morgan, that's a fucking shit show. That's a yelling contest. Like, you have to know what that show is. You can't go in there and seed anything. Got it. But if you're having a conversation like this one, where it's like, okay, we're trying to be honest, we're trying to hash through some stuff.
With your co-host. It's his co-host, mind you. Right.
Yeah. So that I think is a moment where you could be more honest and more reflective. But and they were open about this. Pisco and Destiny at that time had made a conscious decision to become overtly partisan in the way that they covered things. Like, they had gone through an arc where they were trying to be like open-minded and making bridges with the other side, talk to Ben Shapiro.
But yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. But then they decided like, no, that's not what we're doing anymore. And I'm sure they had reasons for that. But like, yeah, I certainly prefer it when people are trying to at least embrace the spirit of the good faith conversation, even if it's imperfect.
But for me, I agree with that. Like, but there's a difference between, and this is like, I challenged Destiny on this space. Destiny's a good enough debater. He's doing the spaces after this, and they're just bringing on these randos on Twitter that are he's wrecking them. So they bring me on, and you can tell the tone changes immediately. Immediately, he goes from just like bullying these people, and I'm like, all right, fuckhead. I was like, this is what I said. I was like, you know what I find despicable about you, Destiny? I was like, it's not that you probably wanted Trump to die. It's that you can't even fucking be honest about it. That's what infuriates me. And I was like, remember when you said that rioting was the other side of the coin? And now you're trying to defend your statements by being like, well, political violence is too much. I was like, just say the truth, man. Like, I know you're afraid it'll hurt your brand. You're on this space. You can delete it, right? But we know the truth, right? Now, I'll be honest with you. Behind the scenes, I reached out to some of the people that are Destiny's Orbiters, and I was like, you need to tell this guy to chill the fuck out, because he's going to ruin his career. And more importantly, that he's got a pretty, how do I put this as generously as possible? He has an impressionable audience. And if they're taking what he's saying at face value, something bad could happen. So for the sake of fucking, and I spent 2 weeks, I hated streaming after that first assassination attempt. I was reaching out to everyone I could, was like, can we just have an agreement that we should draw the line at saying assassination's bad? And I couldn't find people. I couldn't. I talked to J-Stock, and they were like, him and Cherry were like, well, but what if Trump is Hitler? And then Lonerbox, who was like a more reasonable, like calmer guy, he tweeted out, at what point should we have stopped Hitler? And I'm like, what the fuck are you people doing? What are you doing? Right? Like, this is insane. And so, like, I'm talking to these people about all this shit, and I was willing to give the benefit of the doubt to Destiny that's like, you're spiraling. He had some shit going on in his personal life. That's a very bad moment that week for Democrats, because I think a lot of people realized, Trump looked like a boss after that. He stands up, he's yelling fight. That's
iconic moment, yeah.
As far as politics go, that's bad for your side. That the other guy just got shot and looks like a fucking hero. Pretty bad, And so you're spiraling, you say some fucked up shit, that's the end of it. But he keeps doubling down. Well, Corey Compatore, the guy, the firefighter that got died, fuck him, man. If you're MAGA and you go to a Trump rally, you know you're supporting Hitler, so fuck around, find out. That's what he says, right? Then the Luigi Mangione, he says, yeah, but it was different with Trump. Because, Luigi's not the big man where Trump is making these decisions, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, you're equivocating, you're rationalizing the killing of Trump again. Then he's tweeting out after these, sounds like they killed the wrong CEO. And at some point you're like, where's the benefit of the doubt that I'm willing to give? If I just say it's all trolling and shit, then why did he say that to Pisco? If it was just spiraling in the moment, why is he still saying this shit,
And going back to the mean Napoleon tweet, right? Like, where we got in that conversation is we're saying, like, is there a higher principle that you can violate the law for a higher good in certain circumstances? Yes. But the problem is, if you don't limit that, that applies to everyone all the time. So if this guy thinks that Trump is Hitler and thinks that he is stopping Hitler, does he get a hall pass because he's following the higher principle? Like that's the danger of the argument. It goes so goddamn far.
I mean, talk to Ted Kaczynski. Same thing, right? Like he's fighting this greater evil. Same thing.
Almost no one thinks that they're doing it for like petty, stupid reasons, right? So like that's the value of having actual principles. Is you can say like, yeah, like it strikes me as problematic to do this because even though there are maybe, as you pointed out, these historic exceptions that kind of worked out, as a general rule, this is a very bad principle. Like if you let people do this, it has no limiting principle, it has no end. And it's just going to spiral into political violence.
But it's even worse with Destiny because there's one thing of being like, I'll refuse the court, right? I'm not saying that's good. We talked about how bad that would be. But it's different to being like, I get to kill you. Like, I get to kill you because you're evil. And it strikes me as like, my thing is, there are certain implicit agreements I need to have before I'm willing to talk to someone. In the case of this tweet, you saw what I was saying on X. But in general, I don't want to talk to someone who I'm afraid might hunt me down and kill me. I'd like to avoid that person. You're right. You don't want to talk to someone that you think is going to talk to you. You don't want.
Oh shit! I gotta go.
Yeah. Sorry. That's all right. My audience told me last night not to talk to anyone that's vaxxed because it's taking over their brain. So there you go. But no, like I don't want to talk to someone. There are people that I won't talk to anymore, not because I blame them, but because their audience mass reports me. And so it's like, why would I talk to them anymore? Because then all of a sudden I get all these flags from YouTube. I'm done talking to them. Like Connor the other night. I'm not saying I wouldn't talk to Connor, but I'm not saying that Connor intentionally got my Twitch channel banned. But if I did think that he did that, why would I ever talk to him again, right? It's like, yeah, you're not going to talk to someone that conversation itself could lead to real world harm to you. Makes sense. So there needs to be an agreement. Like before I talk to you, I don't want you to, I need an agreement that you're not going to come to the conclusion. If I really dislike what your political arguments are enough, I could advocate assassinating you or the people you support. That's it. And so if Destiny truly wants Trump to die, wants him to be assassinated, I don't want to talk to him. Period. Yeah. I'm not saying that I'm going to be on the horn with the FBI or that I'm calling YouTube to get him banned. I just don't want to fucking deal with the guy. You go do you then. If that's going to be right. And for me, it's like, I think that we as a space need to call that shit out. You need to say like, no, that is not fucking in the realm of appropriateness. That's a bare minimum of, because once violence is on the table, then dialogue is impossible. And so that's just my feeling.
You have to have principles and you have to apply them consistently. Otherwise, you're a hack. That's what a hack means, right? It's somebody it's rule for me, not for thee, not for me. And they just do whatever works for their side. If you don't advocate that there are some principles that you're going to follow, like for example, political assassination is bad. That should be a low bar. It reminds me of actually why a lot of people got so disillusioned with Sam Harris, who I've always enjoyed listening to. I disagree with him a lot, but I enjoy it. But then when he said like Trump is such a unique evil that it would essentially
they can find bodies
and violations of free speech. Well, it's like no. You can't. It doesn't work that way. You either care about free speech or you don't. And if you care about it, then you have to uphold the principle, especially when it applies to somebody you don't like. That's actually the only time it matters.
Right?
Like
I totally agree. But what I'm saying is, you're right. But I'll still talk to someone that's a hack. Like, I think Pisco's a hack. I enjoy talking to him. I think he's a fucking political hack. But Pisco doesn't want me to be killed if my political ideology, And I've had that, like, the first time I had this conversation was this guy on this website, this blog I was on above Top Secret. And he was a guy that was, I would say, an intelligent socialist, if such a thing can exist, but whatever. And he was saying after the Charlottesville shit, he put on this big screed there in writing, and he's like, Trump's clearly a Nazi. And at this point, if you still support him, you're clearly a Nazi. And everything should be on the table for each and every one of you. And I'm like, well, that's pretty vague. What do you mean? And he's like, well, and he's trying not to violate terms of service. He's like, I think you get into it. And I was like, okay. I was like, so you're saying if I still support Trump, I'm a Nazi? Yep. And you're saying that everything should be on the table. I would assume that means violence. Yep. And that would mean up to and including death. And he says, well, depending on the level of your power. And so if Trump's clearly going to lose the election in 2020, then we don't need to kill him and you. But if enough of you are going to vote for him, then yes, we would have to start killing you. And I'm like, you just called for the genocide of half of America, or half of America's voters. And, and the crazy part was, okay, there's fucking insane psychos, whatever. The crazy part was the people defending him. And there were dozens of them. And they were like, well, he's not saying to kill you now. He's saying if things got bad enough. And I was like, right. But he's saying his definition of things being bad enough is Trump winning the election. And they're like, well, and that's the shit to me. I deal with this shit. I've dealt with this over and over. When Destiny was saying this shit, I went to his Reddit page, and I shit you not, it was rife with anonymous Redditors on his Reddit page that were like, listen, we tried to do it the right way. We went to the courts, but the courts made Trump God Emperor. That he cannot be prosecuted, which is what Destiny was saying. That was his... Trump is now beyond prosecution. The Supreme Court is so corrupt, and now if he would win, he could do anything and the Supreme Court will defend him, and so now we must take matters into our own hands. And it's like, that's different than Trump's violating the TRO and put a tweet out. Power-wise, Trump's obviously more powerful than the Reddit person. I get that. But when it comes to, like, if I truly believe you're a hack, okay, fuck it, I'll talk to a hack. But if I truly believe that you're like, yeah, we should assassinate Trump, I don't want to talk to you. Fuck you.
Well,
I don't know how I would like to make it more clear.
Those are the people, and on some level, it is, it's like, okay, it's a Redditor versus the president, as you said. So this is a very different.
Of course.
Sorry. But in a very real sense, I actually think those are the people who got Trump elected. Like, yeah. I think that the overreaction is meat and drink for the right, because people say it all the time. It's like, I like that he's pissing off the right people. It's like, and this is what we were saying before, like the left, in order to become competitive, has to disavow these morons. Because if you're going to take the position, it's like, oh, well, you see this with Free Palestine people sometimes. They're like, well, I get to punch your baby because punching a baby brings awareness to Palestine, and punching a baby is much less harmful than what's happening in Palestine.
The genocide.
So I get to punch your baby. It's like, you're a lunatic, and you're a loud lunatic. And the louder you are, and the more of a lunatic you are, the more that's what the left looks like. And then Vance is going to succeed Trump, because anybody could beat you assholes in an election.
Well, that's why.
Like, the thing that you're saying is fucking crazy, right?
That's why I'm fine that the Joe Rogan of the left should be Destiny or Hassan. Great. In different ways, they're both fucking insane. And they're just like, when people see it, like just how insane, like, you're the DNC chair, and if you're sitting, I'm not saying they knew Destiny's coming. You're
goddamn terrorist.
Right.
You're like a Houthi pirate. Like, come on.
It's just, yeah, he did. Hassan's fucking. Plus, Destiny's smart and can articulate shit. Hassan's a fucking idiot. Hassan's, you know what Hassan?
Destiny talked to me for an hour and a half about Supreme Court law. There's no universe in which Hassan has that conversation.
No. Hassan's
no universe.
But
so I don't. We're not comparable in terms of intellectual fight.
Right, but Hassan's attractive. So